Servers at restaurants. What's the strangest thing someone's asked for? Story 1. We had a woman send a grilled chicken salad back because it was cold, so we cooked some new chicken and made sure to send it back while still warm. She sent it back again. The entire salad wasn't hot enough for her. We microwaved her salad. She ate it. I don't know, man. Edit as of 06122023. This was my top-rated comment on this account. Unfortunately, thanks to the stellar mismanagement of USPES, I am looking to have this account permabanned. It was a fun ride, kiddos. Story 2. Once a very thin, middle-aged woman came in. She couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds soaking wet. She asked what our biggest steak was. I told her it was the 24 ounces ribeye. She said, "Okay, you'll have that." Our steaks came with 2 sides, so I asked which ones she'd like. She said I don't want sides. I told her they were included in the price, and she still refused them. I bring out her steak and she begins eating. She's about a third of the way through when I ask, "How is everything?" She says, "Great, bring me another steak." I say, "Is there anything wrong with that one?" She says, "No, it's great, I want a second one." I go back to the chef and tell him, and he couldn't believe it, but we served her another steak. She ate all 48 ounces of steak and left me a 40 tip. Story 3. Honestly, I'd say the weirdest thing was that while I was a server at a restaurant in the Royal Hawaiian, a guest asked me to book a shark adventure tour. It had nothing to do with my job or even the hotel. Those tours were entirely separate businesses. I took his black card, went to guest services, picked up a pamphlet, and booked the tour. He tipped me $250. Totally worth it. Story 4. I had this couple come in with their own tea set. The man asked me if I had a few minutes to learn a few things. They were the second table sat, so I humored him. He showed me a very specific way of steeping and pouring the tea over a sugar cube and had me try it a couple times with water. The whole thing was sort of neat. He then asked if I would mind serving them their tea this very particular way. They were super kind. Even tough. The man had sort of an intense vibe to him. I filled the pot with hot water, carried it out like he showed me, and poured their cups of tea exactly how he showed me. He seemed extra pleased but never said a word or even looked at me. It was no problem, and I felt super fancy doing it. I did refill their tea one time while they were there, and he also asked that I keep his wife's water glass full at all times. I knew it was going to be a good table when the first time I came by and refilled her water glass and inquired if they needed any more tea. The man handed me 20 and sort of dismissed me. He did it twice more that afternoon. At the end they paid with no tip, I thought, but 60 and a cool lesson was enough for me. My manager found me about an hour later and handed me an envelope and said they told him they only will come in when I'm working from now on. The envelope had 100, business card, and handwritten thank you note. Apparently they had put this request up for many fine dining places and I was the only to get it right and do it graciously. It was very odd because after the first lesson they treated me as if I was almost invisible, backed up by the fact they didn't tip me in person. On every return trip it was the same. If you didn't know the deal they would seem like cold, but they tipped really well and I treated them like VIPs every time. Story 5. A tablecloth. A gentleman shat himself at a booth and asked for a tablecloth so he could walk out with it wrapped around him. I still serve him to this day, and that was around 15 years ago. No shame, back he comes once a week. We never asked about getting the tablecloth back. Story 6. A middle-aged lady insisted she didn't like soda water or sparkling water, so instead asked for a white wine spritzer. Without the white wine, there are 2 ingredients to a white wine spritzer: white wine and soda water. Story 7. I used to work at a Japanese restaurant, and I once had someone come up to me and ask me if we had any low-sodium soy sauce. The request itself was not so strange, and I gave him the bottle we kept behind the counter. The strange thing was what he used the soy sauce for, which was pouring some of it into his Pepsi. Story 8. Chicken is vegetarian. Lady orders pizza with chicken for the table. Rest of the table argued with her that they're vegetarians. She can have chicken on her own pizza with chicken. She replied chicken is vegetarian. Refused to understand that her friends were trying to get a vegetarian meal. Story 9. One time at a Mexican restaurant my brain glitched and I asked for chopsticks. Poor girl froze up and said, "Ill, ask my manager, but I don't think we have those." Story 10. Can I have the chicken salad please? But instead of corn I want peppers. Instead of raisins, dates. And instead of pineapple, apple, and no chicken thank you. Story 11. I used to work at Olive Garden. There was a lady that would come in at least once a week and she was dubbed by us staff as Pepperoncini Lady. She would want you to open a new bag of the pepperoncinis we used in the salads and pour out the juice in a cup. She would literally straight up drink the juice. She would also get a bowl of pepperoncinis and just eat them. Story 12. I had a couple that told me to wait before I pre-bussed their table so the man could lick every plate clean first. They had multiple apps and entrees between them and he licked every single one clean before I was allowed to take it. They weren't in a private booth or anything. The other guests could see this happening. Story 13. Years ago I worked at this amazing Breton French creperie in San Francisco. Phenomenal food with a pretty small menu. Guy comes in and orders a sweet crepe with vanilla ice cream. No biggie. Then he wants to add a sunny side up egg and parsley to this crepe. I ask him a number of times if he's sure he knows what he's getting and that it's not 2 separate crepes, one sweet and one savory. He assures me. Of course when I ring it in, the kitchen thinks I made a mistake, to which I assure them, it's not a mistake. I bring out said vanilla ice cream with sunny side up egg crepe and the client devours it. Weird. Story 14. Not a server, but my grandma would bring in her own bread to restaurants and ask them to toast it as a side for her breakfast. Edit. I never really asked her about the bread, but I believe it was some store-bought, multigrain style of bread. she'd bring it in a Ziploc bag. It definitely wasn't an allergy thing, and I don't think it was a saving money thing either. She wasn't the Great Depression type. She was a character straight out of Mad Men. Mrs. Maisel. She was never told no, but to be honest, she may have only done it at places she was a regular at. Typically when we visited my grandparents, we always went to the same restaurants. My clearest memory of her doing this is at a place we always had breakfast at the morning before we left. Story 15A Grilled Cheese. Atkins style. This was like early 2000s. My boss told me to microwave 3 slices of cheese and charge her 8 for it. She was thrilled. Story 16. The place I worked at had little water cups on the table, and we kept them filled for customers. I sat a party of 2 women who said they were waiting for a third person and went to fill their water cups. When I asked if I should fill the third one or wait for the third person to arrive, one woman said, "Oh, no need, he's trying to quit." I thought it was a joke, and when the third person, a man, got there, I went to fill his water. He said, "No, don't fill it, I'm trying to quit water." Story 17. House salad. Hold the lettuce and all other vegetables, extra croutons, extra cheese, extra dressing, literally a plate of croutons, cheese, and dressing. Story 18. In college I worked at a burrito shop on campus. One night this guy who was stoned out of his mind ordered a burrito with everything on it. 3x salsa, sour cream, extra beans, meat, rice, everything. I could barely wrap the burrito. He walks over and sits at a table and takes one bite and all the burrito contents shot out the bottom. He just went "oh no," and then just started eating it out of his lap and off the table. It was entertaining to watch. Story 19. Ranch with everything. Don't get me wrong, I love my ranch dressing too, but people want it on the things you'd never expect. 60 steak. Can I get a side of ranch for the steak? Soup. Can I get ranch with that? Spaghetti. Would you like me to grate some fresh cheese on top? No, but can I get ranch for it? Story 20. This man told me he couldn't have anything that has been ground up at some point, so like, can't use anything with flour in it, not because the gluten, but because it was made small at one point. My man, that is not a thing. Story 21. Flava Flav came into the restaurant I worked at. It was a fancy seafood place. He ordered just a plate of cucumbers for himself. Everyone else at his table ordered normal things. I'm guessing he maybe doesn't like seafood. Hilarious. Yes, he wore a giant clock chain and he let the staff take pics with him as he said Flava Flav. Really nice guy. Story 22. Years ago while leaving a restaurant I saw a guy sitting at the counter seats pouring ketchup into his Sprite, straight out of the glass Heinz bottle. He glanced around to see if anyone was looking and then started pouring it in. Story 23. I work somewhere that sells Macallan 25. It's a 25-year aged scotch that is $350 for a 2 ounces pour. We don't sell it often, just for the occasional high roller. Someone asked for 2 shots of it mixed with Diet Coke one night. The bartender died inside pouring it for them. But a 700 tab is a 700 tab. We aren't in the business of telling you not to spend money. Story 24. When I was a server, the objects requested couldn't faze me. The quantities of what was requested had the ability to make me question the customer's sanity. 30 ramekins of whipped butter was pretty impressive. The lady who ate them appeared to be in her 40s or 50s and nothing odd or noteworthy about her appearance. She was a bit on the thin side, if anything. That table was a party of 8 and she seemed to be the center of attention. Story 25. Worked at Bob Evans 20 years ago and there were a few parsley women. She would order a glass of milk and a large soup bowl full of parsley and eat it. No salad dressing or anything, just straight parsley. Apple pie woman. She would order a piece of apple pie with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on it, but the pie was almost never hot enough. We finally figured out how to make her happy. Instead of microwaving the piece of pie for 5 minutes you'd microwave it for 7 minutes. Fan lady. Not food related, but the lady would come in every Sunday morning, our busiest time of the week, and demand that the speed of the fans for the whole restaurant be slowed down. She claimed she had a medical condition and got away with it for 2 months. This stopped when one of the managers determined they also had a medical condition, but it required the fans to be left on at normal speed. This made fan lady very mad and never came back. Deep fried bacon guy. No complaint really. Turns out deep fried bacon is delicious. Story 26. Had someone visibly offended that their glass of wine didn't have ice. After I get her a mug of ice to pour it over, she asked for sugar packets which she stirred into it. She still wasn't enjoying it and offered to get her a soft drink instead. She gladly let me swap it for some lemonade. Story 27. Been a long time since I worked as a waiter, but the strangest thing would be my underwear. A group of drunk women came in one day and asked for my boxers. I obliged because I was and still am, I guess. Story 28. I had a regular that would eat an entree-size plate of pepperoncini for lunch. That's it with some soda water. He would take a bite then pour the juice in his soda water. He had to eat like 40 or 50 every time he came in. Story 29. I once had a lady ask for chicken medium rare. I told her we can't do that and she responded with, "But they do it at other restaurants for me." I promptly told her to go to other restaurants then. I ain't catching that lawsuit. Story 30. Kind of the inverse, but a lady ordered a charcuterie board and when it arrived, with disgust, she asked me to take it away because it had meat on it. I carefully explained that the ingredients were listed in the menu and that the meat was somewhat implied by the name of the dish. She remained unfazed and I returned the board to the kitchen. That was fun. Story 31. A customer asked me to overcook his chicken breast until it's extremely dry and rubbery. Said he loves overcooked dry chicken. Literally said I want it to the point it's tough like leather. Story 32. An old man once asked me for a damp napkin to clean his glasses. although an odd request at a restaurant. I ran a napkin underwater and came back to give it to him. He then asked why I was giving him a wet napkin. I have had absurd experiences with other types of jobs but none more than in the restaurant industry. Story 33. I was at a salad bar and a lady put lettuce on her plate and then covered it in ice. She ate it with a fork, attempting to stab the ice like croutons. No one else seemed to notice. She was chatting with the staff like any regular would. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Story 34. I worked kitchen at KFC, but from time to time we would all throw on the headsets for drive-thru just to listen in. One night we get a guy put in a typical order, but then he starts in on, can I get extra hot sauce? I like it hot and spicy. Do you like it hot and spicy? I really like it hot and I gotta have it spicy, and so on. He pulled up to the window with his wife in the passenger seat and his kids in the back who looked mortified. Story 35. I can't really say I recall anything especially weird being asked for, but what always amazed me was how people just assumed that a restaurant could just whip something up for them, especially when it comes to dessert. I had a coworker have a customer who perused the dessert menu, shut it, and asked for a slice of apple pie, never mind baking an entire pie for someone. Mind you, there was no apple pie in the menu and most dessert items at a restaurant are not made to order. People would also always put reservation notes asking us to bring a cupcake for a birthday. Again, not something we had on the menu, nor something we were going to make special, even if we didn't have 210 covers coming in that night. Of course, people were more than welcome to bring in a cake or dessert, but no one wants to pay the plating fee. Story 36. Well, strangest comment I ever got was, "Sir, these vegetables are clearly touching my fish," a non sequitur from decades ago that I'll always remember. Story 37. This was years ago, but I had a middle-aged woman ask for some Wawa to drink. Took some effort, but I kept a straight face and asked if she wanted ice in her Wawa. Story 38. I once had a woman order a glass of red wine, with a side of creamer. I actually didn't think much of it at first, but when I brought them to her, she proceeded to pour the cream into the glass of wine. I told her I've never seen that before. She said, "You've got to try it." I'm not going to try it. Story 39. Someone once ordered a veggie quesadilla from me, and after I brought it out and checked on them to make sure everything came out alright, the person said, "Excuse me, I have a dairy allergy and I can't eat this. Why would you sell me something with cheese on it?" She did not inform me she had a dairy allergy and ended up ordering a veggie quesadilla no cheese, so just sautéed peppers and onion on a large dry tortilla. Story 40. I'm not a server, but one time I was in line at a Subway. The guy in front of me ordered a cold cut combo, which I think is just a bologna sandwich, starting normal, but he follows up with and add meatballs to that. The girl making it paused for a second, but pushed through, but then she did what her job demanded. She asked what kind of cheese he wanted. The man looked her right in the eyes, didn't hesitate and says cottage. The sandwich artist looked at him and just said no. To this day, I have no idea if she said no because they didn't have cottage cheese or because she was too disgusted to make it. But that one word no sent me into a fit of laughter, and I had to leave the line. Story 41. Academy Award nominated, Hollywood Walk of Fame star, father of Jamie Lee Curtis, actor Tony Curtis. The single most miserable I ever had the honor of waiting on. He was staying at the resort the restaurant I worked at was in, so I had the privilege of attending to him several times over the week. He was insufferably smug and condescending, several times saying this isn't what I ordered, even though his order had been read back to him and confirmed. How many times can you order in a restaurant and get something you don't think you ordered, before you start to ask if maybe it's you? The most ridiculous was that he ordered a hamburger, wanted it cooked rare, so the chef cooked him his burger, and when I brought it out to him he said it's too overdone, redo it. So I told the chef and he made a more rare burger. Curtis sent that one back too. Now the chef is pissed, so he made a patty of raw hamburger and waves a torch over it so it's barely brown and ice cold in the middle. Loved it, said it was the best burger he ever had. Still complained about how long it took to get his meal. I still remember the chef saying if that's what he wanted, he should have ordered a tartare à la retour. Is it too much to ask that people learn the name of the weird thing they like to eat? I have to look up that name every time I tell this story. Tony Curtis is long dead now, and frankly I'm not missing him much. I've posted this before, but I used to work at a chain restaurant in college. Let's call it Crapplebee's. Woman comes in and asks for a glass of the mango stuff. I clarify whether she wants a mango tea or mango lemonade and she says no, just the mango stuff. For reference, the mango stuff is syrup, literally sugar syrup with fake mango flavor and food coloring. I explain that the mango stuff is not juice, it is syrup. She insists she wants just the mango stuff. I bring her a glass of straight up mango syrup. She drinks the whole thing and takes one to go, not to mention we had to charge her like 12 a glass because she drank a bottle and a half of mango syrup that would have made like 50 mango lemonade. She was cool with that. Story 42. I worked in an Italian place at the height of the Atkins diet craze. We had someone order a personal pizza, to go no crust, along with some other stuff for their family. My kitchen manager thought quick, took a piece of foil, built the pizza on top of it sans crust and ran it through the oven. We boxed it up and sent it out with the rest of the order. I never heard back from them, and to this day am still not sure if it was a genuine request, or someone's idea of a joke. Either way, I don't really care. Story 43. There was a lady who appeared to be a little older but looked like she took care of herself and had some plastic surgery done to her face. She asked me for a Coke Zero with extra Splenda on the side. I brought out a few packets, but she asked me for a bowl of the sweetener. I then watched her tear open packet after packet to add to her diet soda. After she left I counted how many she used, 16 for a 16-ounce soda. I replicated the drink to try with my coworkers on shift, just to see what she was thinking. I was trying to slurp a solid through my straw. I then decided maybe it wasn't Botox but lots of preservatives that made her appear more youthful. Lol. Story 44. Oh wow, something I actually have an answer for. Worked at an all-you-can-eat sushi place and you were allowed one bowl of ice cream, anything more, and it would just be an all-you-can-eat ice cream place. Woman asked for chocolate ice cream with a heaping side of wasabi. She ate it all mixed together. She admitted to it being super weird but said it tasted great. Still the weirdest order I've taken to date. Granted, I don't work in food service anymore. Story 45. When I went to take an order from two men, one grabbed my thigh and said, "I'll have you, you look meaty." The other guy at the table was mortified. I was unamused. The other servers wanted to take the table off me but I wasn't traumatized, just annoyed. Story 46. Woman sent a steak back 9 times. Not be replaced to eat a bit and have it cooked more. Eat a bit and have it cooked more. The thing was black and still wanted the juice cooked out. Anytime even a drop of juice came out of it she sent it back. Eat a little, hit a middle part, tiny drop of liquid comes out, sent back. I mean, this thing was well done and still complaining. Why even have a steak if you hate the meat juice in it? Just a dry burnt steak. I mean, by the last time she sent it back the part left was maybe the size of a chicken finger to cook off the juices, but to each their own. Story 47. Back when I was serving at a Chili's I had a couple ask me to give them their gender reveal for a new baby. I never met them before but apparently they loved Chili's. Story 48. Hamburger at Burger King run through the broiler twice. I held up the disc of ash with my tongs and she excitedly nodded her head. My ex said a guy would ask for a specific number of pickles on the side, like 9 pickle slices on the side, every visit. Story 49. Not a server but a dude I know orders a cup of hot water and lemons whenever he goes to a restaurant, then puts his utensils in the hot water cup and squeezes lemon juice in it to disinfect the silverware before he eats with it. It's not a joke, he just does that and swears it's normal. Story 50. I once got a table that wanted the steak without the steak. I just stood there and looked at them waiting. They explained they didn't eat beef so they wanted everything that came in the plate like the sides, but with no steak they wanted chicken instead. The way the chef looked at me when I told him steak with no steak was priceless. LMAO. Story 51. Guy ordered spaghetti. After he finished it he complained that it tasted like cinnamon. I told the owner, who is Greek, and he yelled saying that's the secret ingredient, and he ate it all, so I had to tell him he couldn't get a refund because he cleaned his plate, and also that he picked up our secret ingredient dash. Story 52. Had a mechanic in the neighborhood. He was kind of tall and scruffy. Seemed like a pleasant guy though. He would come in almost daily and order a mustard and onion sandwich. Wonder whatever happened to him. Story 53. I worked at a macaroni grill where one night a customer brought her own pasta for us to cook for her because she was highly allergic to numerous ingredients and could possibly die. Ma'am, maybe you should just eat at home. Story 54. Decaf and put it in the micro for 2 minutes. Your coffee's never hot enough. I poured our hot decaf into a mug and nuked that sucker for 2 minutes in our restaurant-grade industrial microwave. The cup was scalding hot and literally boiling over. I couldn't touch it, it was so scorching. I had to serve it on a plate. I set the coffee in front of this 70-year-old veteran. He grabs it with both hands bare and takes a long sip. Perfect. Story 55. The other night I had a girl ask if the chef would manually take the bones out of the chicken wings. Of course, the chef said no because of hygiene, so one of her friends offered to do it for her. Story 56. Shot of Fireball, plus hot sauce in a double shot glass. I thought it would be way too much. A half oz of hot sauce just shot back, so the guy ordered it many a time, and eventually I asked him about it. He told me to try it, which I refused, not a fan of spicy stuff. He repeatedly told me that it wasn't spicy. Of course I didn't believe him. The thing was like 13 hot sauce. He was clearly trying to prank someone who didn't like spicy stuff. Anyhow, after a year of us going back and forth about it, I finally lamented when he told me he would tip me 20 to take the shot. So I did. Crazy how it's not hot at all. Like it's less spicy than normal Fireball. Story 57. One of my first nights serving at Red Robin, a customer asked for a pitcher of rum, like the large pitchers for sharing beer with your friends, but rum. Story 58. Former Subway sandwich artist here. A guy wanted a foot-long turkey sandwich and for me to put tomatoes on it, but to cut each tomato slice into quarters and for the round edges to face the hinge of the bread and the right angle points to face the outside of the bread. The white American triangle cheese pieces needed to be split in half, and those smaller triangles needed to be put between certain slices of turkey to supposedly fill in the triangle gaps of the quarter tomatoes when it closed. I apparently didn't figure it out perfectly by his standards because he started screaming at me and knocked over some stuff. I honestly couldn't care less whatever issue he had. F that guy. I remember being surprised in that moment that I'm actually involved in an interaction this ridiculous. Story 59. I worked at a country club in high school, and with your meal you received a salad. I asked what dressing shed like and proceeded to name 15 dressings we had. She told me they all sound delicious. She will have them all on the salad. I initially thought she meant ramekins of each of the dressings, but she said no, she wanted them all on the physical salad. I proceeded to bring a salad with 15 dollops of dressing on it, ranging from vinaigrettes, honey mustard, Chinese peanut dressing, raspberry dressing, ranch, blue cheese, and others. I watched her from the server station then mix the salad with all the dressings and eat every bite of the salad, then used the bread to clean the leftover dressing on the plate. By far the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. There is no way that combination would taste good. Edit remembered another dressing. Story 60. We have a family of regulars who come in and immediately hand their server a printed out list of their order with everything coursed out, including drink refills. The first time I had them, they seemed almost rude and found any questions I had regarding their order as intrusions, but they always tip well. By now, I know the drill and handle the whole interaction almost without saying a word. I guess they just want their evening to be as distraction-free as possible. There was also a time years ago where a guy asked for 2 orders of chips and queso, bring a spoon, and forget the chips. He then proceeded to eat the queso like it was soup. Story 61. Not a server, but I had to chime in on this one. Years ago my wife and I were in Chicago for a convention. She was very pregnant with our first child and had a bit of a rough time at one point in the middle of the day. We went to a restaurant at the hotel that the convention was being held at and sat down. When the server came over, my wife asked very politely for a plate of pickles and pineapple. She has never once before or since requested anything like this. The server said with an ever so slightly confused look on her face, "I think we can do that." When they brought it out, my wife ate the whole plate, which was completely full of the 2 fruits, and was as happy as could be for the rest of the day. Story 62. Customer wanted clams and mussels and a cream sauce with bell peppers. At Olive Garden, kitchen manager refused even though we had all the ingredients because it was basically seafood portofino without noodles. Add peppers, whole shrimp and scallops. Whole family walked out while kitchen was cooking their other meals. She screamed at me in the dining room that I was a bad waiter. I got drunk that night and fingered the hostess. Be 19 for as long as you can. Story 63. We served a soup called chicken gnocchi. You really don't want to know how many differently wrong people with the power to vote and drive called it. Chicken Gestapo, chicken Gucci, chicken goat cheese, chili Gestapo, lots of Gestapos for some reason. Story 64. I served a woman who wanted to order a grilled shrimp Caesar, but she had to know where the shrimp were caught because she was not visibly pregnant. It was a whole thing in the kitchen. The shrimps from Cisco. No dude, where did they get the shrimp, what body of water? She ordered the grilled chicken Caesar because we couldn't be specific enough about the shrimp, with a margarita rocks, extra salt. Story 65. My mom does this weird thing at restaurants. She will ask the server to tell her which of 2 dishes she is trying to decide between are better. When the server tell her their opinion, she will order a completely different dish. Which is better, the filet or the salmon? The salmon is our most popular dish that our restaurant is known for, so definitely the salmon. Okay, I will have the chicken. Story 66. I worked in a sushi steak restaurant and we had a sushi roll for people to try sushi even if they didn't like fish. It had baked chicken cut into strips, cream cheese and avocado inside. Someone came in and asked to replace the cream cheese with cheddar cheese. We had burgers, so the sushi person took a slice of cheddar cheese we would use for burgers and crumpled it up to put in the roll. The person liked it so much they got a second order and declared that they loved sushi now. Story 67. This woman asked for an apple martini dirty. I verified several times with her and the bartender still made me go ask her again before he made it. It tasted awful. She drank it and asked for another as it was made exactly to her liking. Story 68. Guy would come in and want our giant chicken dinner salad. Every single ingredient had to be on a separate plate, and he wanted to cut his own cucumber, tomatoes and onion. Surprised he didn't ask us to give him the cheese to shred. The salad didn't come with egg, but he would also request 2 boiled eggs to cut up. He also wanted his bread burned. When we saw him walk in, we would shove some bread to the back of the oven and tell everyone not to touch it. He would assemble his salad, scoop out the inside of his bread, put salad in the burnt shell of bread and eat like that. Did I mention he didn't want dressing either? Also had a family that would come in on Friday nights and request me as their server. They always tipped on the high end, so I didn't mind. They would get 2 tables as they had 4 kids, mom and dad at one and the kids at another. The kids were all old enough to order for themselves. Youngest was about 4. Standard chicken strips or burgers. The youngest always asked for bacon, just bacon. I double-checked with mom. Yep, 8 pieces of bacon for the kid for dinner. No bread, no nothing. Mom said she goes through about a pound of bacon a day for her as it was all she would eat. This was about 15 years ago, so the kid is either very unhealthy or dead. And one time mom opened her purse and handed me about 20 of our very specific ramekins. She always just stick them in her to-go box and would bring them back when they stacked up. Story 69. A grown lady wanted noodles, 3 large sides of melted butter, and a bowl of shredded parm. When I bartended, someone wanted a martini extra dry on the rocks, with no vermouth and no ice. I was like, really, what an idiot-ol. Story 70. I once served a woman who asked me if boneless was the flavor of the boneless wings. Same restaurant. A chap asked for a chicken quasimodo. I looked at where he was pointing at the menu and said, chicken quesadilla. He looked at me like I was simple and said, yeah, chicken quasimodo. Story 71. Some Mormons or something came into our Bertucci's and ordered local beer with martini olives as a garnish, and I was like, you want the olives in the beer? And they said yes. Story 72. I saw an unholy moment when I did table service and served a patron club soda. Took their main orders. They asked for mayo. I brought it over. They immediately started squeezing mayo into their soda. I had to take a minute. Story 73. Was hosting at a chain restaurant. I seated this young couple and their infant. As they were walking out after their meal, the lady stopped at the door, looked back at me, and asked, can you throw this away for me? I wasn't wearing my glasses that day and didn't realize what she handed me until my hand was suddenly warm. It was a full diaper. Story 74. I worked in a hotel at one point. The chefs in the restaurant would always talk about how annoyed they'd get when someone ordered filet mignon well done with ketchup. Those people were referred to as white trash with money. Story 75. I worked a movie premiere for SAG once, and some dude high as giraffe tipped me $300 for a black trash can vanity cover that probably cost like $2. Story 76. I used to work at a Chipotle-style Mexican burrito place. This girl would come in and ask for a burrito bowl with 10 ladeless servings of our queso sauce, so it pretty much turned her burrito bowl into queso soup. Story 77. Around 2 years ago, I had what I could only guess was a 168-year-old man celebrating his birthday with dinner. After ordering his meal, he very kindly asked me if the chef could please place his entire meal in a blender and serve it in a bowl. Naturally the chef said no, so I did it myself, believing that this man had the biting force equal to a butterfly flapping its wings. He really enjoyed it and was very grateful. He had jambalaya, and I still wonder how that tastes blending it into a soup.